In this video, we're going to go through on Nanhua Primary School, Primary 5 Math Term 3 Weighted Assessment 2024. And let's get started on the first question. Okay, question 1. What is the product of 0.007 and 800? Okay, so if we were to simplify it a little bit more, what we can do is we can say it is equal to 0.007 times. So 800 is basically 8 times 100. Okay, so now we can do this, right? 0.007 times 8. Basically, this will become, so if you remember your 7 times 8, it is 0.056 times 100. Okay, so with this, then what can we do? We can then have to count the two zeros over here, and then our decimal place will then move to the right two times because there's two zeros over here. So what we can do is we can move 1 and 2. So the new decimal place will be in between 5 and 6. So therefore, the answer to this is 5.6. So that means the answer to this is option number 2. And there you go. Option number 2 for question 1. All right, let's move on to question number 2. Question 2 says here, which of the following is the same as 5,002 centimeters? Ignore the dot here, there's no dot. So in this case, what is the same as 5,002 centimeters? So all of these are in meters. So to give a recap, basically 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeter. 100 centimeter is equal to 1 meter. So 1 centimeter is equal to 1, then divide by 100, and this will give us 0.01 meters. Okay, so basically the divide by 100, if you were to look at it like this with the decimal place and such, you count the two zeros, right? 1, 2. So you move the decimal place 2 times 1, 2. So now you move this, right? This decimal place here. That means you put a 0 over here as well. And that's why it's 0.01 in this case. Okay, so now we know that 1 centimeter is equal to 0.01 meter. So that means 5,002 centimeters is equal to 5,002. Then we have divided by 100 in this case. So let's do that. Okay, and this will equal to, so 5,002. So if I were to put here 5,000 or 5,002, we have two zeros again. So we move two decimal place to the left. So we have this decimal place, and then we do 1, 2. So the decimal place will move here. So that means it looks like a smiley face ish. It will be 50.02 meters. Okay, and where can you get 50.2 meters? In this case, is option number 4. And that's it. So that's it. The answer is 4 in this case over here. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. All right, question number 3 says the usual price for a watch was $140. David bought it at a discount of 20%. How much was the discount? So we are calculating the discount. Okay, so what we want to do is just say watch is equal to $140, and the percentage for the discount is equal to 20%. So we just want to get the discount, which is equal to 140, and then we want to multiply it by 20%. Okay, so that means it's basically 140. We need to multiply by the fraction 20 out of 100. Oops, 100. Okay, so 20% is basically 20 out of 100 in this case over here. All right, and that means we just want to cancel some stuff. So cancel the first zero, okay, to this over here, and then cancel the second zero, or the just have 10. Let's put it as red, and we cancel 0 over here. So that means this will become 14 times 2, it will be $28. Okay, so let's see if there's a $28. There is, which is option 2 in this case over here. And the answer to this is $28 because that is the discount. Okay, all right, let's move on to question number 4. Okay, question number 4, it says here, in the number line below, what is the value of A? So you see, there is a bunch of numbers and we need to find A. Okay, I'm just gonna do this. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to find the number of gaps. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 gaps in between 6 and 7, right? So in this case, the difference, okay, I'm gonna put here the arrow. Okay, so the difference is just basically difference of 1, right? So we have 1, and then we have 1 between 6 and 7. Same goes to 7 and 8, right? Then at the same time, we also have 4 gaps in between, right? So 4 gaps, right? So that means if you were to write down 4 gaps is equal to 1, 1 gap is equal to 1, and then we divide it by 4. And what would this give us? Okay, so if you were to try and see what is the decimal place, you can divide 1 divided by 4. For me, I usually like to use fractions to help me calculate this. So 1 over 4, if you've done this before, then you probably know the answer to this. So usually what I want to do is I want to get my denominator to be either 10, 100 or 1000. In this case, 4, can you make it into 100? Yes, we can. So we can multiply it by 25 in this case over here, right? So 4 times 25 for the denominator. That means the numerator also can multiply by 25. So that means in this case, this will become 1 times 25 will be 25, and then 4 times 25 will be 100. And this will equal to, what's the decimal place for this? Is basically 0.25. Okay, so that means 1 divided by 4 is basically 0.25. All right. Okay, now we know that one gap is 0.25. So if we know that, then A will be just one gap below. So the arrow, let me have an arrow here, which is basically here is 0.25. Okay, so I'm going to make this like this. Oops. Right. Okay, 0.25. And then the arrow will just be the other side. Okay, so to move back, right, we just want to minus this 0.25. So that means A over here is equal to 6 minus 0.25. Okay, this should give you 5.75. Okay, so if you were to do the workings, right, you can put here 6. Okay, and then we have two decimal places, 0.00, and then we minus 0.25 in this case, right? Okay, then we add a line over here. So basically, in this case, 0 is 0. We just have, essentially, we can just cancel the line to both in this case over here. All right, and then 6 will also be cancelled. All right, so that means the number here should be 5, then this should be 9, and then this should get 10, right? In essence, like this, right? So we have not cancel this, but this will just get 10. Ooh, I want to cancel this line, sorry. All right, so 10 minus 5 in this case we will get 5, right? So let me just move this to the right. Okay, 5, 9 minus 2 over here will be 7, and then dot 5.75 in this case over here. So now we know what the answer to this. This will be 5.75. So do we get 5.75? Yes, we do. So the answer to this is option number 3. All right, let's go to question number 5. So question 5 says here, a rectangular tank measures 40 cm by 30 cm by 20 cm. It is filled with water to a height of 8 cm. How much water is needed to fill the tank completely? All right, so I would say the easier way is basically we want to get the height of the empty space, right? So we just want to get this height, and from this we will know how much water we can fill it up. Okay, so I will say remaining height. Okay, remaining height is equal to 20 minus 8, and that will give you 12 centimeters. So from there, remaining water will be length times breadth times height. Okay, so in this case, remaining water. So what's the length? Will be 40. What's the breadth? Is 30. And what's the height that we want? Which is 12. Okay, so in this case, uh, what we can do is, it's so we can have, in a way, it's 4 times 10 times 3 times 10 times 12, right? Because 40 over here is 4 times 10, 30 over here is 3 times 10, and then we have 12 over here, right? So in essence, if we were to move things around, it's 4 times 3 times 12 times 10, 10 times 10. Okay, and then that means 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 12 is 144 times 10 times 10, we just put 100, and this will give, you put two zeros at the end of 14400, then centimeter, and then this is cube in this case over here. So is there 14400 centimeter cube? Yes, there is, and it's number 2. All right, so the answer here is number 2. There you go. So that's all for this section A. So let's move to section B. So section B, it says, what is the value of 3 tenths, 12 tenths, and 8 hundredths? Okay, so let's get started on this. So 3 tenths, what does this mean? So I'm going to put here, okay, 3 tenths means it's basically, basically 3 times tenths, right? This will be 30. Okay, 12 tenths, right? So if you were to remember, 0.1 is basically 1/10, right? Okay, so or 1/10 is equal to 0.1. Okay, a lot of people mistaken this is one, but it's not. So 12 tenths, 12 tenths is equal to 0.1 times 12. And it should give not 0.12, it should give you 1.2. Okay, so that's one thing that you need to take note. And then what is 8 hundredths, right? Okay, so 8 hundredths, if I were to just move this here, put a line here. Okay, I'm going to continue over here. Okay, so basically if 100th is equal to 0.01, so remember this is the 100th place. So that means 8 hundredths is equal to 0.01 times 8, which is equal to 0.08. So if we combine all of this, the answer should be 30 plus 1.2 plus 0.08 is equal to 4.28. So that's, oh sorry, it's not 4.28, it's 31.28. All right, and that's the answer. Okay, I was just testing you guys. All right, okay, yeah, that I also make common mistakes. Okay, so 30 plus 31.28 in this case over here. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question 7. In a class, 2/5 of the students are boys. What percentage of the students are girls? All right, so there's multiple ways to do this. So I would say I will do this way. So boys over here. Oops, I don't want this. So we can have the boys percentage equal to 2 out of 5, right? Times 100. Okay. So, okay, let me make this a little bit better, which is basically 2 out of 5, right? So if I were to convert this into percentage, 2 out of 5, right? Or I guess put 2 out of 5, okay, so simple. So 2 out of 5, and then you just times 100%, okay, and what would this give you? So in this sense, we can have 100% divided by 5, so cancel 5, and then you cancel 100, so 100 divided by 5, this would then give us 20. Right. So from this, okay, this will equal to 2 times 20, which is equal to 40% in this case over here. Right. So 2 times 20. So the boys' percentage is 40%. Right. And from there, you can get the girls' percentage. Okay. So since 2/5 of the students are boys, that means the remaining are girls. So in this case, girls percent is equal to 100 minus 40. This will give us 60%. That's it. All right. So there you go. So this will be 60% in this case over here. All right. So let's move on to the next question. Question 8 over here. Okay. It says here the price for 30 mangoes is $48. What is the price of 2 such mangoes? Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down 30 mangoes, not mangoes, mangoes is equal to dollars 48. Right. Then so the price for 30 mangoes is $48. Okay, then what we're going to do is in this case, how do we get 2 mangoes? Right. So to get 2 mangoes, we need to basically divide 30 by 15, right? So 30 to 2 mangoes is divided by 15. So that means this also for the 8, we also need to, in a way, divide by 15. Okay. So let's do the working for this. Okay. So for this case, the multiple of 15, what can we get that's closest to 48? So if you were to calculate, it should be minus 45. So 3 times 15 will be 45. So we're going to put 3 here. And then this will give us 3, right? And then we need to add a 0. So this will be like 3.0. So 15 minus 30. So in this case, this will be point form, right? Minus 30 as well, 3.0. So basically, what multiplies 15 to get 30 is 2. And there you go. This is 3.2. So it gives 0. That's what I see over here. So with this, 8 divided by 48 divided by 15 will be dollars 3.20. There you go. That's the answer. The answer is $3.20. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Question 9. Okay. The price of a camera is 1,200 excluding 90%, 9% of GST. How much is the price of the camera including GST over here? Okay. So what we can do is camera, okay, is equal to 1,200, and then basically we want to get the GST. So multiple ways to do it. So what we can do is we can get the 9% GST, which is equal to 1,200 times 9%. Okay, in this case, okay, of camera. Okay, and what we can do is equal to 1,200 times, and then it will be 9 out of 100. Okay, all right, so it will look something like this. Okay, then what we can do is we can cancel the zeros, 2 zeros, or we can cancel the 100 actually with the 2 zeros here. Okay, and with this will essentially become 12 times 9, which is equal to $108. Okay, so if you do the workings for 12 times 9, I mean, it's just multiply. Right? So it's just basically 12 times 9 is the same as 10 times 9 plus 2 times 9. Okay, so it's the same over here, and this will give us 90 plus 90 plus 18 equal to $108. Okay, so if you remember your 12 time payables easily, you can get $108. Okay, so how much is the price including the GST? So that means camera plus 9% GST is equal to 1,200 plus 108. This will give you, oops, $1,308 in this case over here. All right, and there you go. So the answer over here will be 1,308. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question 10. All right. So Mrs. Raju has $8,000 in a savings account. She earns 2% interest each year. How much money uh, will Mrs. Raju have in her account at the end of 1 year? Okay, so what we want to do is, right, so savings is equal to $8,000 rich. Then interest, right, percent is equal to 2%. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to calculate the interest, the amount of interest for a year, which is basically, in this case, interest at end of 1 year, $8,000 times 2%. Okay, which is the same as $8,000 times, okay, I'm gonna copy my 9 here, okay, or I just create my own, so 2 out of 100, okay, and then we just multiply it by $8,000 in this case, so we can cancel the zeros or the 100 with the 2 zeros at the interest. Oops, and this will equal to 80 times 2, which will give us $160. Okay, so that's the interest. Now the next part is how much in total, right? So in this case, how much money will have in her account? So total, right? So in this sense, I'll just write here total is equal to 8,000 plus 160, which is equal to $8,000, 160, $8,160. Okay, and that's the answer. Yeah, 160. There you go. All right, so let's move on to the next question. Question 11. All right, so pails of water are poured into the cubical container of each 40 centimeter. Each pail has a capacity of 2 liters. How many full pails of water are needed to fill the container? Okay, so the property of a cube, right, is basically, I'm going to write it down here. Cube means all sides are the same. So that means length is equal to breadth is equal to height. Okay, cube length is equal to cube breadth is equal to cube height in this sense, right? So yeah, I'm gonna put here. So what we need to do is we need to get the volume of the cube, and then we divide it by the 2 liters over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this a little bit small and just write it down here in this case, right? So now we want to get the volume of cube is equal to 40 times 40 times 40. Okay, so basically in this case this is 40 centimeter, right, and this is 40 centimeter. What's my arrow? This is also 40 centimeter, 40 centimeter in this case over here. All right, okay, so 40 times 40 times 40, and this will give us so in a way 4 times 4 times 4 times 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, so 40 is basically like that, right? So 4 times 4 times 4 is basically 16 times 4 times 1000, and this will give us, so what, 16 times 4, this will give us 64 times 1000 equal to 64,000. Okay, if you want to do workings for 16 times 4, you can, so it's just 16, right? Let me put it here. Okay, then times 4, put a line, oops, put a line over here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna see. So what is 6 times 4? It'll be 24. Then we put 2 at the top here, right? I'm gonna make this small. So 1 times 4 it will be 64. Okay, all right. So that means we are correct in this case. All right, with this, we know the volume of code is 64,000. The next part is we want to have the number of full pails. Number of pails. Okay, so 64, this is centimeter cube. Okay, in this case over here, right? So centimeter cube. So we know that before that also, the volume of code is 64,000 centimeter cube. So that means this is also how many liters? 64 liters, right? So if you remember, 1 liter is equal to 1000 cm cube. In this case over here, let me copy this cube, right? So that means the reverse is the same. 1000 centimeter cube is equal to 1 liter. And how we get that is basically 1000 divided by 1000. Okay. All right. And then we get 1 liter. Okay. So that's it. So for 64,000, we get 64 liters because we divide by 1000. Okay. So if I were to add one more step, in this case, 64 centimeter cube. All right. Okay. Which is also equal to divided by 1000 is 64 liters. All right. So now pills will be equal to, let me just put this 64 liters here. Okay. So 64, and then we divide it by 2. Okay. Because the number of cubes, total number of volume of cube, divided by the pill, that means we will have 32 number of pills over here in this case. Right. 32. Okay. There you go. Alrighty. Let's move on to the next question. Question 12. Okay, so a dress was sold at a discount store. How much was the discounted price of the dress? So it's 40% off. Okay, so what we can do is we can say discounted percent, no, discount percent is equal to 40%. So discount, so I'll say after discount percent will be 100 minus 40, and this gives us 60%. So now we want to get the after discount price, which is equal to 190, okay, times 60%, right? In this case over here. Okay, so you can calculate the discount as well and minus, that's also fine. So for this, I'll just do this. So this will be 60 out of 100. All right. Okay, so 60 out of 100. In this case over here, then we just multiply 19 times 60 over the 100. In this case over here, all right. So we can cancel the 0 and the other 0 here as well. Okay, let me zoom this in a bit. Okay, and then we can cancel the 10, make it red, and then cancel the other 0 here as well. So that means this will become 19 times 6. Right, so I want to give you a hack on how to calculate numbers that ends with 9 with 6. So basically, it's the same as 20 times 6 minus 6, right? So it's actually the same. So this will be 120 minus 6, and this will give you $114 in this case over here. All right, so the answer here is 14. I don't make it red, I want to make it black. That's it. All right. Okay, let's move on to paper 2, question 1. Okay, over here, it says Mrs. T bought 80 apples and 120 oranges. 10% of the apples and 5% of the oranges were rotten. What percentage of the fruits were not rotten? Okay, so let's get started. Basically, we know that the total apples is equal to 80 and the total oranges is equal to 120. So we know that the percentage of rotten apples is 10% and the percentage of rotten oranges is 5%. Okay, so we want to know what is the percentage of the not rotten apples and oranges. Okay, so let's do the apples first. So not rotten apples is equal to 100 minus 10, which is equal to 90%. And then percentage of not rotten oranges is equal to 100 minus 5, which is 95%. 5%. So now what we want to do is we want to get the not rotten apples, not a percentage. So basically what we want to do is the total apples is 80 times 90%. Okay, so I'm going to use the calculator, right? So we're going to say 80 times 90%, and this will give us 72, right? So let's move on to the next one, which is not rotten oranges, okay, which is equal to, so the total oranges is 120, okay, 120 times, so not rotten oranges is 95%, so 95%, so we use the calculator again, so it's 120 times 95% is equal to 114. Okay, so now we want to get the total fruits, which is equal to apples and oranges, right? Plus oranges, which is equal to 80. I'm going to make this here like this. So oranges plus apples, 80 plus 120 is equal to 200, right? And then lastly, the total not rotten fruits is equal to 72 plus, oops, 114. Okay, so I use the calculator again. 72 and then plus 114. This will give us 186. So now we want to get the percentage. So the question asks, right, about the percentage of the fruits that were not rotten. So we know the total not rotten fruits and the total fruits. So what we're going to do is going to say percentage of not rotten fruits, which is equal to basically the not rotten fruits 186, right? And then we divide it by 200 times 100%. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to use the calculator again. So 186 divided by 200, okay, times 100. Okay, so this gives us 93%. Therefore, the percentage of the not rotten fruits is 93%. All right, very good. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 2. All right, question number 2. So, Kylie had a rectangular piece of paper measuring 31 centimeters by 21 centimeters. She cut out a square for 4 centimeters at each corner, as what you see over here. She then folded up the sides and taped the corners to form an open box, as what you see over here. What was the volume of the open box? Okay, so what we're going to do is we actually need to get the volume, right? So volume, okay, which is equal to the length times breadth times height. Okay, so essentially you want to get the length. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Length, right? Length times breadth, right? Breadth over here, and then times height in this case over here, right? Okay, so how are we going to measure this? Okay, so in a way we kind of have to visualize what's the length and breadth and height. Okay, so the actual thing, right, is that the length over here is the one that's cut out. Okay, so we have this length. I'm gonna color this as green. So this is the length that we are looking for. So I'm gonna make this green as well, right? So we're looking for this length. So we're also looking for the breadth as well, which is this one, right? So I'm gonna create a line over here, and this will be maybe blue, and this breadth will be blue as well. Okay, and the thing is, actually, we already know the height. So the height itself is this one, this little thing over here. Okay, and the height is actually 4 centimeters in this case over here, right? So we know the height is 4 centimeters. So we're going to put this as 4 centimeters, right? So in a way, let's write it down now, right? Over here, the height of open box is, or height of open box is 4 centimeters. Okay, so we want to get the length of open box, okay, which is equal to, okay, let's see. Okay, since we know that all of the sides of the square is being cut out equally, if this is 4 centimeters, okay, that means this is also 4 centimeters. Right, so which means this is also 4 centimeters. And this also is 4 centimeters. Okay, so that means the length over here, we have to minus the 4 centimeters in this case. Right, so I'm gonna write down 4 cm, make it a little bit small as what you see over here. So we have 4 centimeters, we have 4 centimeters, and we also know that the length of the rectangle, okay, which is the whole thing over here. Let me make it into another color. What color should I use? Maybe this. Okay, so we know that this whole thing over here, okay, is actually okay, actually I want to make this an arrow instead. Right, so this whole thing, this whole rectangle itself is, we know that is 31 centimeters. Okay, in this case over here, right? So to get the length of the open box, what we want to do is we basically minus 31 with 4 and 4. Okay, and that's what we're going to do, right? So length of open box is equal to 31 minus 4 minus 4. Okay, so let's use the calculator. Okay, 31 minus 4 minus 4, this will give us 23 centimeters. Right, so now we know the length of the open box is 23 centimeter. And now we're left with the breadth of this. Okay, so at the same time, okay, let me put this as black. So we also know that the side of it over here is 21 centimeter. In this case over here, right? This whole thing is 21 centimeter. Okay, so that means since we also know for the breadth, right? I'm gonna put this breadth over here. We also know that this red line, okay, is also 4 centimeters. Okay, so I'm gonna put here 4 centimeters, 4 centimeters. And we also know that the 21 centimeters over here, okay, I'm gonna put this dotted line, is this whole breadth of this rectangle, right? Length times breadth. Okay, so then what we can do is just have 21 minus 4 and 4 again, right? So let's do that. So length of open box, and this will be breadth of open box. Okay, and let's double check it's 21. Okay, so let's do that. 21 minus 4 and 4. Okay, so let's use the calculator. 21 minus 4 minus 4. This will give us 13 centimeters. Okay, so that means we got our length, breadth, and height. So 13 centimeters, right? So now what we want to do is we want to get the volume. So we already know the height, length, and breadth. We just get the volume, okay, which is equal to 4. Length is 23 times breadth is 13 times height is 4. Okay, and we're going to use the calculator to calculate this. All right, so we have 23 times where times 13 times 4, and this will give us 1196 centimeter and then cube. Okay, so let's put 3 over here. There you go. So that's the answer. The answer is 1196 cube. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. Okay, question number 3 says a piggy bank contains 45 coins with a total value of 1000 $17.10. Wow, 1000 for 45 coins is a lot. Okay, there are only 20-cent coins and 50-cent coins in the piggy bank. How many 50-cent coins are there, right? So in this case, what we want to do is we have this thing called the assumption method. Okay, so what does the assumption method do? Okay, so for assumption method, step 1, okay, step 1 is to assume all coins, okay, to be the higher value coin, which is in this case the 50 cents coins, right? Okay, so let's assume that all coins to be the higher value coin. Step 2, okay, then calculate all the assumed uh, total value, right? So that means let's assume 45 coins are 50 cents in this case, right? 50 cents. So let's assume 45 coins are 50 cents. So assume total assumed value or total assumed uh value, okay, is equal to, okay, let's do it, 45. Okay, so 50 cents also is equal to, I think you know lah, 50 cents is equal to 0.50 dollars. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to multiply 0.5. Okay, and we're going to use the calculator. 45 times 45 times 0.5, and this gives us $22.50. Okay, so now we know the total assumed value. The next thing is we want to, step 3, okay, is basically uh, have the total assumed value minus the actual value, right? So the actual total value, right? Total value in this case, okay? So the actual total value is equal to how much? In this case is $17.10, right? $17.10 in this case over here, right? So because we know that's $17.10, okay? So then we just minus, okay? So we will calculate the difference, right? Difference. Okay, so which is, okay, let's say calculate. Step 3 is just calculate the difference, which is this, right? Okay, which is this one. Okay, so wow, it's very, very big. So I'm gonna minimize this a bit. Okay, so all right. So in this case here, difference will be $22.50. Okay, or just 22.5 minus 17.10. I just put one. Okay, it's equal to, if I guess it correctly, it is dollars 5.40. Okay, so let me use my calculator. So minus 17.1. Okay, $5.40. Great. And then, all right, so the next step is to, step 4 is to calculate the value difference, which is basically 50 cent minus 20 cent, right? Oops, 20 cent in this case over here. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger over here. All right, so that means difference in value is equal to 0.5 minus 0.2 is equal to 0.3. Okay, then step 5 is to, from this we can actually calculate the number of other item by difference divide by value difference, right? Okay, so this one I'll say value difference, so it's easier to see value difference. Okay, so which means this is the 20 cent coin, right? So that means number of 20-cent coins, it's equal to 5.4 and then divide by 0.3, and this will give you, so let's use the calculator, right? 5.4 divided by zero point 0.3 is 18. Okay, so 18. So from there, step 6, we can solve, right? So we know the number of 20-cent coins. We also know the total is 45, right? So we can say total is 45 coins. Then number of 50-cent coins, there you go, 50-cent coins is equal to 45 minus 18. This will give you 27. All right, and the answer is 27. Oh, yeah, okay, 27. In this case over here. All right. So actually, you also need to try to double confirm, right? So in this case, step 7, right? Always double check. Okay, in this case is, so total value is equal to 27 times 0.5. So plus, then we have 18 times 0.2. Okay, right? And the total value should give us $17.10. Okay, so let's try it out. So use our calculator. So 27 times 0 times 0.5 plus 18 times 0.2. This should give us $17.10, which is exactly what we want. There you go. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Next step or last question, question 4. Okay, so Tom was given $4 pocket money every day of the week. He spent $3.20 per day from Monday to Friday and saved the rest. He saved all his pocket money on Saturday and Sunday. Starting on a Monday, how many days did it take for him to save $52? All right, so we know that he saved every day from Monday to Friday an amount. Okay, so I will say every day pocket money is equal to dollars for. Then from Monday to Friday, so I will say he weekday he saves, which is equal to 4 times 4 minus 3.2. Okay, so let's use the calculator. The answer is 0.8 lah, but we always use the calculator to double confirm. Okay, so it's 80 cents, 0.80. Okay, so weekday is basically Monday to Friday. Okay, so we know that weekday is Monday to Friday. Weekday he saves 80 cents, and weekday is equal to 5 days, right? That's what we know. Okay, so now we know the weekdays. How about the weekends, right? So the weekends, it says here, he saved all his pocket money on Saturday and Sunday. Wow, very good, very good. So what we need to do is, weekends is basically Saturday, 2 days, right? Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so weekends he saved basically everything. So weekend he saves dollars for, and then we have weekends is also equal to 2 days, right? So how many days did it take for him to save $52 in this case over here? All right, so what we need to do is, how many days did it take for him to save $52? We just want to calculate the total weekday savings is equal to 5 days times 0.8. Okay, and this will give us dollars for. Okay, so in this case, I want to double confirm again. 5 times times 0.8. Okay, $4. And then for weekends, total weekend savings is basically 2 days times dollars 4. This gives us dollars 8. So 1 week, which is 7 days, is equal to 4 plus 8 equal to $12. Okay, $12. All right. So this is basically 1 week. So number of weeks saved, which is equal to 52. Then we divide it by 12 in this case. So we're going to use the calculator again. 52. Then we just divide by 12. Okay, it's roughly around 4, right? So I want to round up to 4. Okay, so in essence, we want to have a curly equal sign, right? To just round up to this 4 weeks he saved. So that means saved 4 weeks times 12. Wait, and this will give us $48. Okay, so basically the remaining is equal to 52 minus 48. This will give us, so let's use a calculator. Oops, where is my calculator? Okay, so 52 minus 48 is equal to $4, right? So at the same time, $4 is also 5 days. Okay, so that means weekday is, one weekday, not one weekday, but total weekday savings is also $4, right? So that means uh, remaining days saved is 5 days. Okay, so that's what we know. So that means we can calculate the total number of days save to save $52 is equal to 4 weeks times 7 plus 5. Okay, so this give us 33. So let's double confirm with our calculator. 4 times 7, times 7 plus 5. This gives us 33 days. There you go. That's the answer. The answer is 33 days. Okay, so this is essentially how we do it. So what I can do is also to visualize this as well. Basically, when you were to do this, right, you have, let me put this as, here. So you have Monday. Okay, so Monday you have 80 cents. Okay, so I gotta put here. So Monday you have $0.80. Okay. Okay, we look something like this, right? From Monday to Friday over here, we have 80 cents saved every single weekday. And then on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we saved $4. And the total is $12, right? So the thing is that I were to, for example, so this is basically $12, right? This is 7 days, right? Or 1 week. Okay, 7 days or 1 week, right? 1 week, which is 7 days, which is $12. So if we duplicate this, right, then in here I'm gonna say total will be dollars 12 plus 12, right, which is 24. Okay, let me make this total a little bit bigger. Okay, so we got total of 2 weeks, which is dollars 12 and 12, right? So now if I were to duplicate this another time, so now we have 4 weeks, right? So essentially we have 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12. This will give us 48. Okay, but we want to hit 52. So we also know that 1 weekday over here is $4, right? So we just add 4 more days over here, and this will give us, okay, so this is actually 4 days, and this will give us $4. So with this, the total will be 48 plus 12, plus 4. This will give us 52. Okay, so this is how you visualize it, in a sense. Okay, to get the answer. Then, in order for you to calculate, you just calculate lah. So the total is $52, right? In terms of dollars, and then total days, total days. Then you calculate, right? So 7 times 4, 4 plus 4 days, right? Plus 4 days, and sorry, 5 days, not 4 days, 5 days. Okay, and this gives you 33 days. Okay, in essence. There you go. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want more of this kind of video, subscribe down below and comment down what other papers you want me to go through next. See you in the next one. Bye bye.